Célibataire. I'm the Executive Director of QuiC. Thrilled to have you with us today for our February 2026 special edition of QWave, and you'll see why in just a moment. Today, I'm joined by four members of the QuiC Governing Board. Delighted to have all of them with me today. Thomas Strohm, Laure, Jan Goetz, and Tanya Suarez. Let's get started. Who are we? In one slide, an overview of QuiC. We're a nonprofit industry association dedicated to quantum tech, born in Europe, supporting European businesses, and we bring actors from across the spectrum, large companies, SMEs, startups, investors, research, and others. Our mission is to grow, strengthen Europe's quantum industry, and position Europe as a global leader, and we do that by bringing them to work together, to ideate together, and provide solutions together to areas of common interest. We, as an association today, try and bring you quantum as best as we can, yes, with QWave, and we're really excited to have a large industry showcase. Q Expo, it's our main gathering of the year. Our next one, 18-19 of May 2026 in Bilbao, Spain. Don't miss it. We really want to have you there. Years past, we've had great speakers. It's your opportunity as well to come in close proximity with many of the quantum industry companies that are exhibiting their tech. All right, so for today, I'd like to welcome in our virtual room our panelists and fellow QuiC Governing Board members, Thomas Strohm, Tanya Suarez, Laure, and Jan Goetz. All right, welcome to all four of you, members of the QuiC Governing Board, as I said at the beginning. But importantly for today, what I want to emphasize is all four of you have been with QuiC since our first 5 years started, 5 years ago this month. And this is the purpose of this special QWave edition. A look back, quick, over these last 5 years. What have we been up to? What have we been able to bring forward? How is Europe doing? And as we look ahead, what are we excited about? So in February 2021, all of us were sitting at home, depths of the pandemic. It's fitting that today we come together digitally again. This is how we all started some 5 years ago. But over that time, we've really been able to draw not only virtual digital ties with our members, but also really developing and nurturing the sense of community across industries. And I'd like to go back to the beginning, and I'll start with you, Laure. Before QuiC's founding assembly, so now we're talking 2020, really during the depths of the pandemic, a lot of work went into conceiving, thinking about an association, bringing Europe's quantum industry, lots of SMEs. Can you briefly share a little bit on some of the key milestones from that time period to the lead up of QuiC?
Yeah, so there was some ancestral, let's say, before the first lockdown, first COVID lockdown, where there was some grouping, etc., the flagship, there was some groups. But really during the first lockdown, thanks to Tommaso Calarco, there was this kickoff of what should we do? I mean, can we do something perennial, something where the industry really leads and bringing this community really together, not just through different projects. So that was the first lockdown. Then we had several work package or working group, however you call it, and some of them were, how do we set up this? What do we do? Do we do an association or something else? So soon enough, we decided to run an association, and I was part of one of the governance working group. And during the second lockdown, we really described it correctly, wrote the status in German, this kind of thing, and really, I pick up my phone and call it. We all pick up our phone basically and found the first 13 members. So that's a magic number for me, by the way. To do this founding assembly, so in February 2021. So there was a lot of work before that. This was, but that's the idea was really how to build a community and what was the best way, how much we reach, which industry, the European, which countries, etc. And that all that work, more than a year basically, was really consensus driven and hard to agree on something all together. So it was a funny experience for me as well, as I was not really really not knowledgeable in quantum technologies, but it was a tough experience, but that was a nice one.
And Laure, you were our inaugural president for the first few years of our association. Happy to hand over to our current president, Thomas Strohm. You were with us as well during this first year. Once QuIC was finally set up, those magic 13 plus Laure who came together, what are some of the key milestones that stands out for you in that first year, those first few months of existence?
So let me first go a little bit back. So in preparing for this Q wave, I was trying to find out when we created this QuIC name. So that's very interesting, and I was not 100% sure, but so it already appears. So this QuIC name, it already appears on our first workshop. So we had, as Laure said, we had a series of 6 workshops. I moderated the first one, and I think also the other ones, and already on the agenda of the first of these workshops, you find this name QuIC. So that's what we know. This was 10th of February 2020. So the acronym QuIC is more than 6 years old, but I was not able to reconstruct the exact history. But now coming back to your question on the big milestones, I don't remember very big milestones in the first year. I remember that we were already very successful in the first year. So we started with the founding members, and end of the first year, 2021, we already had 130 members. So this was a huge growth of the number of members already in the first year. We had 8 governing board meetings. We made the bylaws, and we already got some seats in Euro HPC joint undertaking. So this was a really great start.
Yeah. And I think what's impressive as well about that beginning was the number of different actors that went into it. Both you, Thomas, and Laure touched on it, the number of players, people that were involved in ideating what QuIC would do, how it would be structured. I think it really helped to start off with such a strong push. 5 years. 5 years is a short time and yet a long time. Short time for a young organization, a young industry as well, to try and put itself on the map and help make sure that there's a strong awareness of about what's going on here in Europe. I think all of us day to day, we know it, but to try and project that and build that and broaden the awareness, that's a short amount of time to get there. And at the same time, 5 years is a long time. The world has changed considerably from when we were founded to today. Through it all, I'm really curious now to hear from each of you, and I'll start with you, Jan. If there's one element, one key moment that stands out to you in those 5 years, either short or long, depending on how you view it, what would that be?
Yeah, well, thank you, Thierry. And of course, it's also for me now a trigger to think about what happened back then when we started all of this. And actually, what maybe not so many people know about is that we were actually in the beginning with a group of, we thought we would create a startup association in Europe. And there were some activities around this, and startups were getting aligned, quantum startups. And then we found out that there is also a parallel activity of, let's say, more institutional organizations and some of the big names. And basically, we had to ask ourselves the question, do we want to go an independent route as just a startup organization, or do we want to build something bigger? And I think now looking back, we took the right decision and said, okay, let's merge all of this and really make one very strong effort. And I think still today, the startup community is a very strong part of QuIC, and I'm actually super happy and proud to see. And I think especially in Europe, this is something that makes us strong, is that we not only have the big organizations, either private companies or also big research institutions, but actually very vivid startup activity, and we call them SMEs. This is the language that we use, but in the end, I think there's this crazy world of startups and financing and funding rounds and all of this behind. And I think what's great for me is just to see how all of this works together, having the crazy life of a startup, but at the same time speaking in one coherent voice to very powerful institutions like the European Commission and others. And I think having this created this alignment and seeing how everyone walks in the same direction, that's really a great achievement for me and for QuiC, of course.
That's really interesting. I actually did not know about the beginning with the startup community being built, merging with the institutional one at the time I was working at Airbus. Funny to hear that now. Great that it did happen. Tanya, you're a community builder, so I'm sure that this story probably resonates really strongly with you. I'm curious to hear what's your big milestone.
Oh no, 100%. But I'm going to first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. This is a real milestone, as you say. 5 years can be a long time or a short time in quantum, depending on where you sit. Certainly for startups, 5 years, you need to be really nimble and to be able to not just have attracted a great team and constructed the foundations of a great company around you. You also need to have convinced a fair few investors that what you're building in future years is going to be around, that you're going to be ahead of the game and ahead of competitors. So, but I'd like to come to maybe the nearer past for my milestone. In fact, I'm going to cheat and I'm going to suggest 2 milestones. So first of all, in 2025, we had, for me, 2 really defining moments in which we proved that we could work together as an ecosystem, that, as Jan was referring, the startups could actually come to a cohered position with industry, with academia as well, and present that to third parties. And that moment was when we presented our view of what should be going into the Quantum Act. So the Quantum Act is that there was a consultation phase that was launched by the European Commission, and the speed at which we and the central team were able to identify the different working groups and work in parallel to come together with a common voice and what was needed, with all of the conversations about do we agree on this, do we not agree on this? We are diverse. There are over 200 members, but that moment in which we were able to come together with all of this work and then finally distill it into, I forget how many chapters, 7, 8 chapters, each of which were 2 pages, very, very discreetly and concretely saying, this is our shared common position. That for me was the pinnacle of all the work that had gone in the previous 5 years. And if I said I'm going to cheat, so I am actually going to mention QExpo, last year's QExpo. That was an amazing event. Was it 650 people, Thierry?
Yeah, on present, on site, 1,800 registrations, yeah.
Right, so 650 people, and the buzz, you could really, feel it. All of the conversations, whether on or off stage, were charged with this kind of passion about what quantum is, what it is today, and what it will become for Europe's future. And then personally, the fact that we had the Nobel laureate Alain Aspect, and do you remember the joke where he had the 2 scientists? I'm not even going to pretend I remember which 2 scientists they were, and he said this was his favorite picture because it showed there were 2 scientists were really smiling, and he said this was his favorite picture because it showed that quantum could make people happy. And I think that's kind of like really stuck with me because we all work really, really hard, but there's no reason why we can't enjoy and have a good time and have a laugh and blood, sweat and tears, of course, but also enjoy what we're doing.
Oh, great. And thanks for picking up on the work that we did together at the end of the year. I think you're right. That was a really important moment. Laure, Thomas, I'm going to finish with you both in that order. Milestone. There's not. They've already picked some great ones, Jan and Tanya. So I'm curious to hear from you both.
Yeah, it's difficult. There are so many milestones. By the way, I would like to correct Thomas. We reached the 100 3 months. We didn't have to wait the end of the year. We had this funding assembly in February. In April, the first General Assembly, And I remember walking overnight for the previous 48 hours going application, and we reached this 100 mark very soon. And that's, as Jan said, this is really interesting. That's a success. What I like about QuIC is the fact that we have almost 2/3 or those SMEs and variety of origin and technologies, etc. But that's what exactly interesting, and it's not easy to bring this community all together. And I agree with Tanya. This kind of exercise, and she mentioned one example, but there are plenty of examples where discussing, don't agree or not, but coming to a common product or a common position paper or whatever it means, that's what it is interesting. This exchange as well. I mean, having each one of us as members have a broader view of what's happening and not just a one-to-one. I think this is important, and it's a great achievement somehow. It's not easy, but that's really what I would like to underline. So sorry, I cannot pick up Tanya's one, but that's at least we agree on this one.
Thomas. Yes, I can only add to that, and I also think that these corporations with our members, together with the members, large crowds of people, to create a document, to create something. This is really fascinating, and indeed, I mean, when we did this position paper to the Quantum Act, we had 65 or so people participating, and in the end, we had one common conclusion, and this is really astonishing. But there were not only milestones. I also remember very well that, I mean, we started as a small association, but now we are clearly the voice of the European quantum industry. And this is a big achievement that we reach together with our members. And it also implies, I mean, our special contact to the European Commission. The European Commission is listening to us, meaning to our members. And I think this is also very, very important for our members. By the way, we are now on the driver's seat of the new coordination and support action of the quantum flagship or the quantum activities in Euro HPC, which also again shows the importance of QuIC in the European quantum ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. I will allow myself one addition to these moments, these highlights, and it's a very personal one for me. I was present at the time in the early days of QuIC on behalf of Airbus, and when the opportunity to take on the role of executive director came up, my heart spoke. It was an amazing opportunity that presented itself, and so for me, a personal highlight was that confidence that the initial leadership, this community demonstrated in nominating me, selecting me as executive director. And 5 years on, boy, am I happy. It's been a really fun ride. Through it all, Thomas, you touched on it. Our goal has been squarely focused on supporting Europe's broad quantum industry. We want to make sure that Europe can shine, can resonate, and that Europe's industry, quantum industry, is very well seen on the global stage. So there's a question. How is Europe doing? How are our European quantum companies doing today, 2026? Jan, I'd like to hear from you first as CEO and co-founder of IQM.
Yeah, so I think overall it's going very well. I think what's really happening in the market is that companies across the stack and across technologies, so not only computing, of course, but also sensing and communication, I think are hitting milestones. And that's super important because quantum still has a little bit of this big promise, but what's really behind it kind of thing. And that we as a community, we have clear roadmaps and we deliver on the roadmaps. And if we do so, I think there's a bright future ahead. And I think where Europe is really strong at is really the depth of the supply chain. So it's not that we have only, let's say, big names or system integrators, but we really have a very deep and very connected supply chain. And this means if the industry grows, everyone grows. And this is how I see it. Like we are still, in a way, kind of creating the cake before we are distributing it. And from this perspective, I think the overall situation, the demand for more compute power, for example, if you think quantum computing, but also demand for secure communications and other topics really pushes the quantum technologies as such. And overall, I think Europe has a very strong position there globally at the moment.
Yeah, thanks. And it's the idea of credibility, hitting those milestones, those roadmap objectives is, I think, really a valuable point, Jan. Tanya, in your responsibilities, you touch on a number of different quantum sectors and also different forums. How do you see it?
So I think that we need to really take hold of the narrative. So to Jan's point there, we need to be expressing our scientific and the opportunity that we have for industrializing quantum in much, much stronger terms. So, we're doing extremely well on fundamentals. We've got strong research and quantum skills. We've got a large startup ecosystem. QuIC is evidence of that. We also have real momentum in building shared infrastructure. So we've got the HPC, so high performance computing, not to use too many acronyms. I think that's helpful sometimes. We forget that we may not necessarily be speaking to quantum experts. But we have pilot lines for quantum. There's an awful lot of activity. And what we need to do is to really kind of focus now on industrialization. We are definitely competitive at the moment. Quantum globally is at an inflection point. I think everyone's agreed on that. And our focus now needs to be on consolidating. So defragmentation, for example, and I'll maybe talk about a bit more about that in just a second. But it is about making sure that we can mobilize, for example, private capital, as well as the private sector investment that we kind of like all know is there. But let's make sure that the private markets also understand that there are returns to be made, and that they are not necessarily going to be in 20 years' time. There are more, there are shorter or nearer term advantages to be had if you invest in quantum now.
Yeah. And when I put your respective comments, Jan, Tanya, I kind of hear that Europe is a hidden gem somehow. Lots of potential, perhaps a little underrated and undervalued by certain investors. Laure, I'd like to hear from you. How is Europe doing today on quantum?
Yeah, I mean, that's, personally, I've not so much in it, but I think QuIC is well positioned to help each other to prepare this future. And this is really what we should look next. I mean, how do we evolve from being a simple community with some working groups and producing some position paper, but really going to the next dimension? What is our role in creating this ecosystem? What is the role in expanding the European market? I mean, making sure every actors here is expanding beyond Europe, by the way, not just inside Europe. So yeah, I don't have a one answer to that. I mean, but that's definitely where we will have to concentrate in the coming years.
And Thomas, in your role today as QuIC president, you're interacting a lot with the European Commission, with other actors. As you take a step back, a step away, and you look at Europe in its position on the global stage, what's your view?
I think it's not really surprising. We know that Europe is very well doing in terms of quantum technology science. But we have also trouble in growing our companies, in particular in growing our startup. This is due to the fact that capital is not so easily available here in Europe as in the US. But I think the European Commission, the European Union, also we are doing a lot to improve the situation. Also, it's really a challenge. Another thing that comes to my mind, this is that we obviously have a very difficult political situation on in the moment. So on the one hand, I mean, we have this tendency to keep Europe as I think I can say, a closed shop or so, and to improve our sovereignty. But on the other hand, I mean, we must also be open for exchange, for collaboration. I mean, we have to let capital in, and so on. And this is really, I think, difficult to walk this fine line between being too protective on the one hand and too open on the other hand. So we have to reflect a lot on this.
And adding just one point on this, in my current role as executive director, I'm often engaging with my counterparts from other parts of the world, from Japan, from Canada, and so on. And I think Europe, we really have that incredible connections, those partners that we can turn to indeed have just that right balance that you're speaking about, Thomas, in our relationships, in our access to different knowledge-based capabilities. We have a fantastic supply chain here in Europe, and I think augmented by these partnerships and relationships that we have. We're coming towards the end of our panel. We've taken some time to look back, look at where we are today. So now I'd like to finish off with our outlook. As you look ahead, there's much that can happen in 5+ years. The world will likely look very different in that next decade. Still, I think as you look into your respective crystal balls, perhaps not too far into the future, is there one aspect, one element that you'll be really paying attention to that you think would be a difference maker for Europe's quantum industry and by connection to QuIC, where we as an association probably will have an important role to play? Tanya, I'd like to start with you.
Well, I'm going to cheat again. I've got two. So the first is standards and benchmarking, right? So I think that Jan referred to this when he was talking about, technical milestones. I think that one of the things that was really interesting was the DARPA QBI initiative, where they very easily got a quick overview of the state of quantum computing by inviting firms from across the world to come and apply to the initiative. And I think that was really smart. We do need more transparency on the technical milestones and whether they've been achieved or not. I think that will also unlock more investment into the sector. And not just for quantum computing, for the other modalities of quantum as well. So sensing, if you've got algorithms, of course, Multiverse have got Compactify to condense AI algorithms using quantum techniques, essentially. But across all of the different quantum modalities or quasi-quantum modalities, I think more transparency on what does excellent look like, because I think that is where the rising tide that is, European excellence across the board is going to be helping all ships to float. And the second one, I think, was one that I alluded to earlier, which is defragmentation. So we do need a real single market and capital markets union. I think that we are not there yet. Maybe we need to speed Europe for that. Maybe it doesn't need to be absolutely every, one of the 27 countries. Maybe it can be, a coalition of the willing. But we desperately need that, because that's how we can make sure that we have. I think it was just kind of like the European economy is $22 trillion plus 4 if you add the UK, which I always do, as you know, and the US has 30 million. That's not so far off. It's it's something like 86%. So again, really helping this defragmentation. Jan, we need to get you a checkbook so you can go out on a spending spree, and I think that would be really great for the industry generally.
So Jan, do you have in your crystal ball that checkbook?
I can share my bank account number later. And no, jokes aside, but building on the arguments, I think it's not only about geographics where we need the defragmentation. It's also across industries. I think we sometimes we tend to live in our quantum bubble and not necessarily look behind the horizon. And the way I see it is that quantum is not happening in isolation. There's a strong connection to semiconductors. There's a strong connection to supercomputing, AI, cybersecurity, and all of those topics. And I think also for us as QuIC, what this means is we need to be open-minded and start engaging with those communities and those industries. Many of them have been out there way longer than we have been as a quantum industry. And I think we can learn a lot from them, but probably we can also give something. So I think for me, this is something into the future, is the engagement of, let's say, nascent industries which will support quantum, and quantum will accelerate from it. If we get all the semiconductor know-how into quantum, and the pilot lines were mentioned already. So if we get really engagement from big semiconductor players into the chip lines that we have, I think the whole field will accelerate, and it will make us as a community and as an industry even more mature going forward.
Really interesting point. And that's a great segue to you, Thomas. In your many functions at QuIC, one of them is engaging with use cases, applications, end user groups. So in your crystal ball, how does that fit, and what else do you have there?
I agree completely with what Jan said, also with what Tanya said. And we are approaching other organizations now. And let's see how this develops. This is a start that is happening now. I think if I look into my crystal ball, so I mean, we all know to become competitive with the United States, we need a lot of money. But we only have a limited amount of public money. So I think it is really very important and very crucial to spend this money in a very wise way. We cannot spend all money in all quantum technologies. We have to focus, and this has to be done in a really very wise way, and that's really crucial for me.
Thank you. Laure, to you, the final word for today. What do you see as critical in the future?
To be the last one, because apparently we share the same crystal ball, which is good news. I mean, Jan took some of my points, but I think that's really important. I mean, don't go in silo effect, neither from a geographical point of view or from technologies, etc. And if I take the only example that matters for me as SAP, I mean, it's no point to have a quantum computer if it's not integrated with HPC or classical, if we don't have all the aspect, etc. And for us, it will be one little piece. It's an additional technology that will help us in some use cases. So we need this broad view. We need this cooperation, and not, as Jan said, not being just in a quantum bubble. So, crystal ball, bubble, whatever, but that's really, and of course the transnational as well. I mean, for any technology, it's the same point of view. We have to collaborate broadly for the sake of everyone. It's always finding this balance between, we pronounce the word before sovereignty and competitiveness, etc. But I think this is important to have this, not to see us as the solution for all quantum technologies. No, it all goes together. It's one little piece in a bigger picture. So nothing easy, and what's in my personal crystal ball in more than 1 year. But I think, we have all the assets to reach this point. So that's important to not lose this view, and not being in a protective way at any point in time.
QuIC will certainly be there for these many different important undertakings, topics, providing that collective viewpoint from our members, as you well alluded to already, Tanya. Thank you all, 4 of you, not only for today's panel. I think it was really fun and enlightening, but also for the amazing work that's gone into our association over these last 5 years. More to come, all of you part of the governing board, so I'll be really looking forward to working with you more. Jan Goetz, Tanya Suarez, Thomas Strohm, Laure, thank you. And as we close, to everyone, if you've enjoyed our conversation today, please do follow our Yes Thank You channel on YouTube. You can also follow us on LinkedIn. We have the latest news, and we hope to see you in person at QExpo in May. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you.